to UniverSoul Women. This is Sherryl Lin.
And I'm Dr. Julie, and we are coming together to ignite radical cultural change. Sherryl, we have been wanting to talk about gender roles. Yes, go. You were going to say something.
Yeah, I'll start by just saying that the reason this topic came up is I noticed, not that I didn't notice before, but my partner who I've been with for a couple of years now, he always opens the car door for me. And, you know, he doesn't just open it, like he really makes sure that I'm in and that I, you know, like my coat isn't stuck in the door, and it's very sweet. And when I was thinking about it, I was thinking about, like, you know, how did these things become a thing? And is it actually, you know, not good or bad, but is it an empowering thing for women to have men open doors and bring them flowers? And like, how is this related to our power as women? And have we somehow abdicated in some way some of our power by some of the roles that we've kind of taken on and some of the tasks that we've taken on? So anyway, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about today.
You mentioned the flowers.
Yeah.
So what are some other of those gender roles that you can think of?
Well, like, I mean, it really is like a behavior thing, like how we expect, you know, girls to be, you know, like out on the playground and letting each other go, you know, being nice and I'll let you go first, where boys like can be aggressive and, you know, that's mine. And, you know, like, I'm going to be the king of the hill and that kind of thing. And,
yeah. So how we dress is another one, that the girls are in pink, the boys are in rough and tough blue jeans.
Right.
The boys get to play with cars and trucks and balls, and the girls get dollies and kitchens. The girls get kitchens. Oh my gosh. And cooking. That's another gender role, right? The women are expected to. I think that one's changing, but okay. So there's a bit of how we in culture our children too with gender roles.
But so is this a good or a bad thing, or neither? Is it neutral? Because, you know, I think about, you know, my partner is not like a give flowers kind of guy. Like, and he told me that. He said he thinks it's, you know, wasteful, and then I kind of get his point. But, you know, there's something about it that I just think is so sweet. And I love cut flowers, even when I wasn't with a partner, I would buy myself cut flowers. I just like that feeling. So, you know, I can buy myself flowers. Like, I have the resources to do that, and it makes me feel good. So should I just buy them for myself? Well, we just had our second anniversary, and he bought me flowers. I almost fell over. I was like, oh my God, he bought me flowers, because he knew that it made me happy. Is it a feminine thing that I wanted to have flowers, or could I buy him flowers if he enjoyed that? He doesn't, so I wouldn't. But, you know, it's like is this part of our femininity to create? Because I do feel, for me, kind of the womanly things that I learned from my mother about beauty and creating like an environment, I wouldn't want to throw that out. Like, or I wouldn't want to stop doing that, because I find that it adds a lot to my it's a very creative expression.
Mm-hmm.
In cooking, I love to cook. So shouldn't it just be whoever likes to cook does the cooking? Right. But there's an expectation, and I've been with men before where they don't cook because they're a guy. Like, and I can tell. It's like, well, have you ever even tried? You know? And, you know, sometimes the answer is no. Well, my mom always cooked, so I didn't have to learn how, right?
So there's gender roles from necessity. So I think that this is an important piece to just drop in, because I'm thinking about strength. That men literally, most men hormonally have levels of testosterone that create great strength. So for example, yesterday we bought a refrigerator to take upstairs in a building, and there's no way that I was physically going to be strong enough to help them carry that refrigerator up this huge, huge, long flight of stairs. No way. So men are strong. Today, I came to the office and we're having an ice storm and blizzard. It's been raining and then it froze. And literally my door was frozen shut. Now, part of me wanted to go get my son or my husband to help me. And instead I went over to get a tool at their office, came back and started chipping ice, but I still couldn't even get the lock. Like I wasn't strong enough to move the lock, which then like I worked and cut and moved and finally I got in, and a man came along to start talking to me. And, you know, it was like, here, let me try, you know, and wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And he did. It was nice. It was nice. Yes, it can be chivalrous. Is that the right word? But with chivalry, but still, it was nice to have him go, hey, can I help you? You know, and to be strong enough to help me get the door open. So there was necessity with some gender roles from way back. You know, the men were the hunters and gatherers, and the women were home taking care of the children and cooking and what have you, or whatever, and the teepees on the prairies versus that. But some of them I kind of like. I like when a man opens the door for me and holds it open. I like it. My husband doesn't always do that. He always opens a door, but he doesn't go open my car door. My brother-in-law always opens the car door for my sister. Always. In fact, she's trained to stop and wait for him. She wouldn't just open her car door and hop in. My husband used to open the car door for me.
Maybe he'll watch this episode and say, oh, I didn't even realize I forgot.
Yeah, he just stopped. Mm-hmm. So are there gender roles that make it, are there gender roles that are disempowering to women? As we talk about igniting radical cultural change, what are some of those gender roles that maybe we need to question and rethink and reimagine? And what are some of them that are just really nice that we can just accept, that are okay?
Well, the first thing that I think of is a combo of both, because, you know, the natural way of things, I'm not saying good or bad, but, you know, we're designed that women feed the children until they're old enough to eat solid food, right? And so the idea that, you know, a woman would stay home with the child was kind of like a natural thing that could happen. We do have alternatives because that's not always possible, or not always something a woman wants to do. And I think that's up to the individual woman to decide. But then once the child's old enough, when we think about like who's going to stay home and take care of the kids, you know, that we've been struggling with that for a few generations now. And I've known some guys that have stayed home with their kids, and women that have gone out to work, and you know, they do what works for them. And I think we have to, in those cases, we can't say this is right, you know, we can't judge each other, this is right, this is wrong. You know, our society isn't an agrarian society anymore where, you know, the men are going out hunting or, you know, working the fields and the women are taking care of the kids. You know, it's not, or a hunter-gatherer society. We're not that anymore. And so we have a lot more options. And I think that that's important to kind of expand our thinking about those kind of roles. As far as how we're raising our kids is another point. And I think we've come a long way with saying, you know, it's not right to say you're a boy, you have to play with trucks, and you're a girl, you have to play with dolls. It's interesting because I didn't really particularly focus on gender role toys for my kids, but they definitely gravitated towards, you know, my daughter definitely gravitated more towards dolls and cooking things, and my son, you know, the Legos and building things. They definitely gravitated naturally towards those kind of toys. And, you know, that just got reinforced when they went into school.
Mhm.
But I think that we've come a long way to stop doing that to some extent anyway, although it is interesting that the girls' toys have to be pink and the boys' toys have to be blue, or, you know, bright colors, and the girls have to be all pastel and soft. And I'm sure marketers have done a lot of research to figure out what attracts the kids, you know, what colors attract the different genders.
So I want to drop in something new to the conversation, because as you're talking, I'm thinking, my daughter is expecting and they're not going to do a gender reveal. They don't want to know until the baby's born. And in my mind, I think it's great. Let's celebrate. It's wonderful. And then there's the, how do you buy gender neutral? Like you can decorate a nursery gender neutral, which is fine. And then we have clothes, and then we have toys, and then we have, you know, but right now clothes. So sometimes I think men are tougher on men. They're tougher on themselves to be masculine. And yet now we have this whole new gender identity piece for a lot of people on our planet. And I think that women being naturally more social emotional, I mean, that is just innate in our DNA to be, for traditionally with the hormone profile of the estrogens and then the oxytocin of childbirth, and then coming into, you know, it's like our power is really from the womb and from that social emotional place. And yet in men's powers up here, right? Their muscle, their strong, their strength. And yet now we have people who don't identify as one gender or the other. We have transgender, and we have a whole new definition of how we identify as sexual beings and our sexual preferences. I don't like to call gender sex. What sex are they? You know, when you check chicks, you know, when you check the sex of a chick, you know, you can do the, but I like to think of humans as their gender role, not their sex. And yet that's all changing too.
Yeah, so it's a spectrum of, you know, we're you know, I think that it's probably always been somewhat that way, that we're all on the spectrum of masculine and feminine energy. And even, you know, perhaps hormonally, like I've thought about that more recently, you know, when there's someone that's transitioning to a different gender, they have to artificially put different hormones in. But is there a tendency sometimes to have those hormones balanced slightly differently anyway? So, you know, again, then we're back to choice. You know, there are, we have to honor people's choices with these roles. But can we, as women, because we're two women talking about this right now, talking to probably mostly female audience, is there, you know, back to the idea of, are there parts of all of this that are an empowering kind of thing for us? Like, I know when I think about myself as a woman and kind of how I was raised, and there's like certain things that just feel so powerful in me, and they're very female. It's a very female energy. It's the creative force from the womb. It's the sexual energy of being receptive, because, you know, the way our biology is, we receive, you know, the male energy if we're in a heterosexual relationship. And I love that. I love the power in that power of being a nurturer in the family, of being someone who is helping balance the energies. And I feel like those are natural female traits. And, I love that. I love being a woman for that reason. Not every woman feels that way, though. My daughter, I remember when she was young, she liked hanging out with the boys more than girls. She said, "But girls are stupid, Mom." And she always was a bit more of a tomboy and had a more masculine energy in that way. So I think it really depends on who you are, but I think honoring that feminine energy in its biochemical form and what it does to us as women, I think is really important.
So I just want to acknowledge the balance piece, because I think that's an important part of igniting radical cultural changes, having us all come back into our masculine and feminine in balance. So got a blizzard outside, it's blowing, and you might hear the whistles. Yeah, it's going woohoo! But this balance is an important piece. I think that's a really important piece of the balance. And I used to be really masculine too. I don't know if people would identify me as masculine, but I had a lot of masculine energy. And for a long time, in fact, I could share with you, like, literally, I don't have nice nails right now. And I've had nice nails for a very long time now, because that was, to me, a reminder of my feminine energy. It really helped me to go, every time I saw my hands, I'm like, oh yeah. And I could come into balancing my feminine energy to really embodying it and being really proud to bring more feminine energy forward and balancing. And then I think there was a time where I went more feminine, and like, I went from masculine business suits and competing in a boardroom to wearing nice flowy things that had no shape or form and what have you. So my nails were like feminine power. It was like this thing that reminded me of that gender role. And of course, then, I don't know, my children are all grown. And so I think that's another part of the gender roles that we talk about is when we're not moms and we're not parenting. I have adult children and now I'm a grandma, but the gender role of women has been very prescribed by our culture. And so now, if anything is possible, how do we recreate gender roles? And is there a need for gender role? Like, gender means you attach a role to a gender. And what if we got rid of all of it? What if there were no gender roles? Now, my husband's always going to be stronger and he's going to have to carry the refrigerator up the stairs. It's just true. But if we really got rid of gender roles, what would our world look like?
I think it's like anything is possible that you said. It's like, what does life look like without limits, without limitations, or without judgment? I think that's part of it too. That, I love to cook, and my partner, I don't know that he loves to do the dishes, but he's happily does the dishes. And he's like, if you're cooking for me, I'm going to do the dishes. And he doesn't even leave any in the sink. He does them all. It's awesome. And to me, that's like, I hit the jackpot because I love to cook. It's not because I'm a woman. It's because it's one of my creative expressions. It's fun for me. And it's not that he can't cook, and he's cooked a few things for me, and they've been good. But it's not his, he'd rather do something else. He'd rather do the dishes, to him, that's a good deal too. So I think whatever works, like, can we be okay with each other if we do, I've seen women look at men who are doing the, as they call, which is kind of a derogatory term now that I think of it, the Mr. Mom role. It's like, why does it have to be Mr. Mom? Why can't it be Mr. Mr. Dad? Like, dads can, take care of the kids too. But I've seen women kind of go, oh, like that when guys say that they, aren't working outside of the home, that their job is taking care of the kids. I'm like they don't know what to do with it. It's like, but you're not the mom, And even though my mom was around when I was younger, when my parents divorced, we lived with my dad. And, he did his best to play both roles. He did pretty good considering he didn't have any practice, but, it's like it worked for us. So whatever works, I think, is a big part of it.
I think that that's a good prescription for us, is to literally have permission to throw everything out and recreate the roles to our personality, to our interests, to our passions. So, for example, my son cooks a lot in his marriage. He does most of the cooking. A lot of it's necessity, as he gets home first, and yet they share the role of bedtime routine. They do it together. She has her parts, he has his parts, but they always have this bedtime routine with the kids that's very balanced and shared. So I'm thinking that a big part of recreating our roles, taking gender out if we want to, is that communication piece. Communicating with our partners, communicating with ourselves. What are our expectations of each other? What do we like? What do we not like? We did a fun thing for Christmas this year where we did a gift giving that was in honor of each other. Instead of buying each other gifts, we created service or philanthropy, giving to an organization, or serving, volunteering. And we got to express what we loved. So everybody just shared some of their favorite things. What is it that's your favorite things? What do you love? And everybody just wrote down all of these things, and we got to know each other better. And then we drew names and we picked. It was a really beautiful thing. And it's a new tradition we're going to do forever. But it reminds me of that. If we're talking about gender roles, it's okay to throw everything out and start over. But we have to communicate. What do we love? You love to cook. And so Brian says, okay, you cook, I'll clean up.
It's funny. I just remembered when I was a teenager, when I was, my dad was playing both mom and dad, and my brother, it was just, my dad, it was his generation. My brother's job was to mow the lawn, and I had to do the dishes. Had to. And I went along with it for a while. And then one day he was outside mowing the lawn, and I just thought, this is not fair. I think we had gotten a riding lawnmower. That's why. And I was riding lawnmower. Like, this isn't fair. And so I went to my dad and I said, Dad, I think Brett and I should take turns, and that I should get to mow the lawn some of the times. And he was kind of like, okay, that makes sense. It made sense to him, even though he was surprised that I asked. And he showed me how to ride the lawn. My brother was so mad because he didn't want to do the dishes. He would much rather mow the lawn. He was really mad at me for a long time, but he got used to it.
Yeah.
Again, like, we automatically went into those roles because that's, it was our dad. We did what he told us to do. And he was raised that way, and his, parents raised him that way, and they're, it had been passed on. But, I spoke up and said, this isn't fair. I want something different. So I think speaking up and communicating, you're right, is a big key to it.
Yeah. Because also a lot of the thing about radical cultural change and gender roles is also that the things that we used to think are important might not even be important anymore. If we think about, like, my grandparents ironed the pillowcases, and it's like my children never ironed, and I'd be like, you need to iron your clothes before you go to school. No, I'm not ironing my clothes. And they would literally put them on wrinkly, and then they would release through the day and they'd look fine. So with radical cultural change, what's really important to us? Do we clean the house every week, once a week? Do we vacuum every day? My husband used to vacuum the house every day. And now he doesn't anymore, but literally that's how he grew up. And so when we first got married, I'd be like, what are you doing? And he would vacuum every day. And we don't vacuum every day now, you know? And so who works on the car? Who works on the lawn? Some people don't even have lawns anymore. You know, well, some people don't have lawns anyway in the city, but other people are coming to sustainable outdoor living or turning their grass into food. And so that like everything is changing. So I do think, I just want to go, yeah, let's start communicating what's important. And again, it's a reimagining, rethinking what's important to us. Maybe certain expectations aren't even important anymore.
I think that the word you just used, expectations, is the key here. I absolutely do not expect my partner to open the door for me, but it's really nice when he does, and I like it, and I thank him. You know, I think 99% of the time I remember to thank him and like really, really thank him and say, you know, thank you so much, because I feel like he's watching out for me. The same way that I think about making a little extra food at dinner so he can take it to work the next day.
Yeah, nice.
And I put it in a container for him, you know,
Huh.
and we take care of each other in that way.
What about letting him order for you in a restaurant?
I've never done that.
I know, I was just thinking about that. Like, I like when my husband sometimes will help me put my coat on. Like, he'll hold the coat up for me, and that's a traditional men's rule from way back. Is like, you put the coat up and the women put the coat on, but I've never done that for him, you know. So I think this is a fun, fascinating conversation that literally down below in the comments we could create even more. Like, what are some of your gender roles, the old-fashioned ones, the ones that are no longer, and add them to the comments below, because it would be a fun conversation to just even reminisce on that. Like, my husband expects me to wrap the presents, but that used to be a feminine thing, but I'm really good at it. I can wrap anything. Box or no box, give me a shape, I can wrap it. He can't think like that. He can't, like, he has no clue about that. So
why they invented gift bags.
yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
What a fun conversation, Sherryl Lin.
Absolutely. I think in closing, you know, we made a few really good points about, you know, that we have to be more fluid and kind of be willing to throw it all out and question it, but also communication and communicating with each other, I think is the key too. Like, is this okay? And questioning whether you want to be the one mowing the lawn or doing the dishes, right? So you can find out more by looking below in the comments, and you'll find information on how to contact Julie and I, our websites and all of that. And we look forward to continuing these wonderful conversations with you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. And you know what? If you have a topic or a question, let us know. We would love to just muse into whatever topic that you have for us as well. So thanks for joining us. Thank you, Sherryl Lin.
Hey, Julie.
You're welcome. Bye for now.